Join me today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where I talk about some players that have impressed me so far in the fall and winter leagues.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Dominic Martino, riding solo today. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, but more importantly, guys, Happy New Year. You're listening to this in 2024. Just want to wish you all a Happy New Year. With that being said, we're in 2024. Fantasy football is pretty much wrapped up at this point. And, we're getting into fantasy baseball now, and what a better time to join Matt and myself on Subtext. Through Subtext, it's a one-on-one in-depth personal experience. You get text messages right to your phone with updates as far as, Matt and I have dropped our rankings, heading into the 2024 season. We got like 40 at every infield position. We go over 100 at starting pitching and outfield. Even got the closers in there already. We're going to have busts, sleepers, breakouts, all that on Subtext, so make sure you check us out there. And guys, real quick, before we get into things, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. And all right, guys, as I mentioned at the top, we actually had a couple of fans ask for this kind of episode, so we're out here doing it. We're talking about, a couple of different leagues here. We're talking about the Arizona Fall League. We're talking about the Dominican Winter League and the Venezuelan Winter League, and just players that have looked good so far, kind of get a gauge of where guys are at, who's looking ready, who's slumping. I think mainly we're hitting guys that, actually doing very well so far, and kind of seeing what the outlook is. And there's really easy one to start with off the top here. So, I'm just going to take the easy one. And just a quick little talk about Ronald Acuna Jr., the MVP, the monster 40-70 season last year. Played 21 games so far in the Venezuelan Winter League. Has had 79 at-bats and just been a monster, his normal self. 30 hits. Six doubles, 1 triple, 7 homers, 19 RBI, 6 steals, batting .380 with 22 walks to 19 strikeouts. Obviously, Ronald Acuna had the monster year last year. He's the number one pick in fantasy baseball this year, hands down. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it in any format. It's got to be Ronald Acuna, my number one outfield, number one overall player as well. Just wanted to mention he still just looks in prime form, and at 25, the guy's in for another monster season. If you had any doubts, he's just doing his normal Ronald Acuna thing. Let's move on. Let's talk about this next guy, though. Let's talk about Jackson Churio. If you haven't been around, if you've been tuned out and you're just coming back in to fantasy baseball, first of all, welcome back, and thank you for being here with us and at Locked On. Jackson Churio is the number 2 overall prospect in all of baseball at the moment. The young 19-year-old just signed a massive deal with the Brewers, and he's ready to go. I'm 99.9% sure he's going to be locked in for opening day. Roster Resources has him playing center field, batting 6th. I love that for Jackson Churio. His ADP has moved up drastically since this deal has been signed. He's going in the top 30 outfielders. Right now, I have Jackson Churio as my number 24 outfielder, and I'm not mad if you have him a little higher, but this is a name, guys, we have to be ready to talk about and accept as taking him. I know people writing off Julio Rodriguez, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago when he first got, the confirmation he was going to make the opening day roster. But with Jackson Churio, just killing it down in the Venezuelan Winter League, 17 games, 66 at-bats, 15 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, a homer, 6 RBIs. 3 steals, batting .379 with 8 walks to 8 strikeouts. This kid's just a monster. He had a great, run in the minors last year, played 128 games. Jackson Churio did 531 at-bats, 88 runs, 22 homers, 91 RBIs, 44 steals, and hit 283. This kid's got, pretty much plus everywhere tools. He's got a plus hit. He's got 60 grade power, even though he's 5'11", 165. Imagine this kid, puts on a little bit more muscle. He's going to be absolutely fantastic. He can steal, at an elite pace. Honestly, I love Jackson Churio. I think I'm going to have him on a lot of teams this year. If the value doesn't get too crazy, I think if you can get him as, your outfielder 3, you're walking away stoked. If you have to pay up and take him as an outfielder 2, I can see the upside, but you might want to go a little bit sturdy, the rest of your way drafting, because when you can't take too many of those risky guys. And Jackson Churio, there is a little bit of risk, but I think the upside is going to be worth the reward. So like I said, just go sturdy after you take Jackson Churio. But this kid's going to be an absolute monster. I really, really, really love what I've seen from him, and I talked about the elite upside in almost every single category. The Brewers lineup is pretty good. You got Yelich in there. You got, William Contreras had a good year. Hopefully Willie Adames can bounce back. Guys like Garrett Mitchell, Bryce Terang could all take a step forward. Sal Frelick as well. So we'll see what thing goes, but I really love the outlook here of Jackson Churio. Let's talk about somebody you guys might not expect to hear the name. Let's talk about Yasiel Garcia, a guy who actually looked pretty good down the stretch last year for the Kansas City Royals. Actually has been playing strong down there in the Venezuelan Winter League as well. Let's talk about what he did first last year, to be honest with you, in the majors. He played 123 games as a 23-year-old. Once again, Yasiel Garcia is who we're talking about here. 464 at-bats, 20 doubles, 4 triples, 4 homers, 50 RBIs, 23 steals, hit 272. Has a decent minor league track record since, 2019. He's really found his stride in the minors really, really quick. He can steal bases at an elite pace. And honestly, when you look at all the stuff, the underlying stuff looks really good too. He's got a good glove, which will keep him out there. Hits the ball hard. Has good exit velocity. He's super, super fast. I like what this kid brings to the table. I kind of want to see where he's going to hit in that lineup. We'll talk about where he's projected to hit in that lineup in just a second here. I believe he was even, getting towards the top at the end of last year. But it looks like they have him slotted in for 9th at the moment, playing 3rd for Yasiel. But that just means you're going to have guys like the Bobby Witts and the Salvador Perez and hopefully Vinny P driving him in. So, Yasiel Garcia could have a pretty sneaky line where he's got, a tiny little bit of pop. Mainly known for that speed. So you're going to talk about a guy who's going to have a good, run total, a good steals total. I think the batting average could be plus as well. You're going to be able to get him super late. Let's kind of see where, the ADP is at the moment. And if you guys haven't been listening, you're just tuning back in, we've been using NFBC ADP. If you're not familiar with NFBC, it's one of the early places you can do drafts. A lot of experts out there. 175 drafts so far on NFBC. Yasiel Garcia is going off the board as the 21st third baseman. I have Yasiel Garcia as my 29th third baseman. I think I'm going to move him up, though. He's somebody I haven't really deep dived into yet, but I really like the outlook on him. He's been, somebody that, with a strong, spring training as well. I could see myself moving up a lot. But that's it for I have one more guy for the Venezuelan Winter League. Then we're going to move into the Dominican Winter League, and then I'll talk about the Arizona Fall League. But before we do that, guys, I do have a quick ad for you. And, of course, we are talking about FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season right. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And guys, one more thing for you real quick before we move on here and get into the rest of these names. I need to talk to you about Locked On has officially launched their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel today. Guys, get on there. It's absolutely a lot of great information on there for all sorts of sports. Check it out, 24/7 whenever you want to, whenever you're up, they're there for you. So let's get back into, some of these guys that have looked good so far. And, we were talking about the Venezuelan Winter League. And I actually have one name that's going to surprise you. Let's talk about Yasiel Puig real quick. It's just a fun name to throw out there because he's looked really good. And I think there was like some fake report that Tampa had signed him to like a, minor league contract, which unfortunately wasn't true. But Puig, I know he's getting a little older. He's 32 years old at the moment. He's played 26 games in the Venezuelan Winter League, 91 at-bats, 24 runs, 7 doubles, 1 triple, 10 homers, 23 RBIs, 2 steals, hitting .418, 16 walks to 17 strikeouts. Just an interesting name if he gets a shot. We know Puig's got power. He looks like there's a little bit of speed left in there. Hasn't played in a long time, but just a fun name that I wanted to bring up and talk about here. Because if he does get a shot at a starting job, it would just be interesting to see what he can do. And somebody that I would, consider if he comes out and has a hot spring training, maybe give him a shot, one of my last picks. But once again, just a fun name to bring up here because, I remember when Yasiel Puig came up with the Dodgers and just everyone thought he was going to be, a perennial all-star, which, unfortunately didn't happen for Yasiel Puig. But, just a fun name to talk about here. Once again, hasn't been in the league since, back in, 2019. So we'll see what happens with him. But let's move on to, names that are actually going to matter a little bit more here. So we're moving on officially from the Venezuelan Winter League to the Dominican Winter League, and let's talk about Junior Caminero. He came up last year as a 19-year-old, got a shot with Tampa Bay. If I remember correctly, he did look okay when he got the call, right? Nah, a little bit mediocre, actually. Didn't impress too much, but you know what? Let's talk about his minor leagues last year because that's where you're really going to see how good this guy was across high A and double A. Junior Caminero played 117 games, had 460 at-bats, 85 runs, 18 doubles, 6 triples, 31 homers, 94 RBIs, 5 steals, hit .324. This guy is just in that upper echelon of prospects. Is definitely in the top 10 prospects, anywhere that you look pretty much. Let's see where MLB actually has him at 6th, on the MLB prospect list, 20 years old, 6'1", 157. If this guy puts on some more muscle, sky is really the limit. The power is already at his 60 grade. You're talking about a guy that could, potentially just be monstrous for this Tampa Bay team. I would love to see where, they have him slotted in as well, because if this guy gets the nod for opening day, his value is going to skyrocket. Somebody I definitely want shares of. Right now, I have him as my 13th third baseman in my rankings. Once again, Matt and I's rankings are skewed more towards head-to-head categories leagues. You can use them for Roto as well. I always try and give my twist on points, when I can. Right now, it doesn't look like Roster Resource has Junior Caminero in that starting lineup, but they do have Wander Franco in there. And I mean, we don't really like to get into all that kind of stuff on this kind of podcast, but things aren't looking great for Wander Franco at the moment. So I think they can shuffle things around, and Junior Caminero potentially starts the year with Tampa Bay, a name that we have to look out for. Because like I said, big power, 30+ home run upside. If he hits in the middle of that lineup, the RBIs and runs are going to be good. Not somebody that has great speed, so you're not looking at a lot of steals from him, but a young bat that is disciplined. So I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Junior Caminero comes up and hits 280 plus. And then, of course, the league will adjust back. And I think he's a young disciplined bat who can, adjust back to league after they adjust back to him. So definitely a name you're going to want to keep an eye on for Junior Caminero. Let's move on to another almost novelty type player, but I think this guy can actually have more relevance than Yasiel Puig. Let's talk about Franmil Moras. Franmil Moras is a guy that I always loved over the years, and I just truly felt like, never got a fair shake there in Cleveland. That kind of let him walk, but he's actually been dominating so far right now in the whatchamacallit, the Dominican Winter League, right? He's actually leading that league with 9 home runs, has a 296 batting average, 28 runs, 42 games, 152 at bats, 34 RBIs, 11 doubles. This guy just has monster power. I've always loved him. I saw reports that there's like 4 or 5 MLB teams that are interested in him. One of them is including Cleveland. One of them was Baltimore. I'd love to see that. I think one was the Twins. If this guy can get a shake out there, a guy that's still only going to be, 20, 27, 28 years old. I think it's going to be 28 years old this year. Has 30 plus home run power. If he gets into a lineup where he can hit, maybe 5th or 6th, the RBI should be good. Batting average is something I will never trust him. Franmil Moras, it's always been up and down throughout his career, but has potential to hit like a 260 in best case scenario. Worst case scenario, maybe like a 220, 230. So if we see like a 240-ish, I wouldn't be shocked from Franmil Moras. Just name to keep your eye on. If he signs, if somebody you could get with your last pick, especially in those 5 outfielder leagues where things get a little bit more tricky. Franmil Moras is, I think, a name that I think could surprise us. 6'5", 265, a guy who's hit 37 home runs before in the bigs with the Padres when he came up. Just loved everything that I've seen from Franmil Moras. I think he just needs a fair shake, and I'm hoping he can get it this season. So let's move on. That's all I have from the Dominican Winter League. We'll move on to the Arizona Fall League. We'll talk about some of the guys that have really taken off there. Let's start with none. Oh, but before we do that, actually, let's do a quick ad break, and then we will get into things. All right, guys. So now let's get back into things. I already teased the name. Let's talk about Mr. Kyle Manzardo. Got traded last year in that Aaron Savale trade. Goes over from Cleveland. Goes over from Tampa to Cleveland. Kind of, gets the, reins over there to do what he can. Because he was kind of being held back. But now spots open. I think Roster Resources has him in there to, start the year. Let's just double check that, though, just so you guys know I'm not blowing some smoke here. Let's pull it up. And, yeah, it looks like Manzardo's in there. Manzardo's going to hit 7th for Cleveland. That's a good spot for that lineup. Lineup's not bad with Quan, Jimenez, Ramirez, Naylor. Both Nailers, actually, and Ramon Laureano actually looks like he's going to be in the lineup, too. Another name to actually keep an eye out for. I do like Ramon Laureano. But in the Arizona Fall League, Manzardo looked fantastic. He hit 6 home runs. He had 19 RBIs. He hit 272, 92 at-bats, 19 runs, 7 doubles. Really drilled the ball out there, hit the ball very hard. Like to see that from the young Manzardo. And just a guy who had a strong minor league career, a bunch of years where he hit over 300. He's got some pop. Let's see. I'm not sure exactly where he ranks so far as prospects in the MLB. He was somewhere up there in the top last year, but I do like young Kyle Manzardo. Let's see. He's the 58th prospect in the MLB. Like I said, hit tools a 60, power is a 50, but I think that could be a plus thing for him at 6'2", 205, and he's had some good seasons out there in the minors as far as power goes. I have Kyle Manzardo as I kind of got him buried at first base right now. I'm probably going to have to move him up when, I deep dive into him a little bit more because I like the upside, but he's not somebody I'm going out of my way to, get on draft day. So just a name to keep an eye on for now, and a name that I do think, will be fantasy relevant this year. Once again, Kyle Manzardo there. Let's talk about a couple of names that you guys might not have heard of. A couple of names just to keep an eye on that, we're talking about these leagues. Let's talk about James Triantas, a young prospect for the Chicago Cubs, 6'1", 195, had a very, very strong Arizona Fall League. He played 22 games. He had 84 at-bats, 18 runs, 3 doubles, 5 triples, 3 homers, 15 RBIs, 9 steals, hit .417. And, he could find his way into the Cubs, lineup at some point this year. So, keep an eye on James Triantas. He's had, a pretty good, minor league track record so far. In the minors last year through 83 games, he had 4 homers, 16 steals, hit .287. Once again, just as we're talking about these leagues, I just wanted to give you guys some names to keep your eyes on, some guys that really excelled and looked very good. James Triantas was surely one of those. And let's move on to one more bat. Then, I'll throw out a couple of arms and maybe we'll do some bonus talk here about some other stuff. But let's talk about Jacob Marcy. Jacob Marcy is just another guy that looked really, really strong during the Arizona Fall League, an outfielder for the Padres, young 22-year-old. And, these are just guys that can see time this year in the big leagues. Want to familiarize yourself with them as you're coming back to fantasy baseball here. In the Arizona Fall League, Mr. Jacob Marcy had 24 games, 92 at-bats, 25 runs, 12 doubles, 1 triple, 5 homers, 20 RBI, 16 steals, hit a whopping .391, just absolutely right there. In the minors last year, through 129 games, Marcy had 16 homers and 46 steals with a .274 batting average, walked 98 times, struck out 97. So Jacob Marcy, somebody I have to deep dive, probably going to rank fairly well in my prospect rankings coming into the season, which, by the way, guys, if you want prospect rankings, make sure you join us on Subtext. Those rankings are going to be out there sooner than later. Matt and I usually do well over, our top 100 prospects for fantasy baseball. So you're going to want to make sure you get those. So, guys, I have a few more minutes here. Kind of talked about some of the top performers coming into the season here. And if you're just joining us, if you've been playing fantasy football and you're just getting back, once again, join us on Subtext, guys. Our rankings are out there now. We want to discuss our rankings. This is the time that you want to do it. You want to get out there and get ahead of your competitors and get Matt and all the information from Matt and I. If you're in a dynasty or a keeper league and you got those questions as well, join us on Subtext. Matt and I will answer those. But as far as the rest of the time I have to burn here on this episode, let's talk about more strategy when you're not overreacting to the stuff that you see in spring training and the winter leagues and the fall leagues, right? If somebody's just having a good stretch of a 2-3 week period in spring training where they haven't really changed anything as far as their, mechanics or anything like that, not really buying into it. It's a time where you get overreaction theater and you move guys up by 2-3 rounds and it doesn't really wind up being worth it. So my strategy is if you see a guy that made a change, somebody like coming into last year, Mitch Keller had been working on all of his pitches and his mechanics. I believe he was at Tread Athletics working on stuff and got his velocity up and changed his arm angles and stuff like that. That's kind of stuff I'm buying into and believing in. If it's not anything like that, and it's like I said, it's just a little hot stretch, sometimes we overreact to that. We'll move guys up by 2-3 rounds, and it doesn't really work out for us, right? I'll talk about, let's as I look through my rankings here, let's talk about some of the changes I made of late. I love to talk starting pitching, so let's talk some starting pitching with you guys. Somebody actually what we could talk about. Let's talk about the Chris Sale trade, right? If you stuck around here, let's talk about that big Chris Sale trade, right? Chris Sale goes to the Atlanta Braves for Vaughn Grissom. I'm loving this for Chris Sale, right? Because look at the wonders that they worked for Charlie Morton's career. The Atlanta Braves are one of the best not that the Red Sox aren't, but the Atlanta Braves are one of the best organizations in all of baseball. If there's anyone that's going to maximize a 35-year-old Chris Sale, I think it's going to be them. I had been going back and forth with Chris Sale, right? I had him as high as my 30th starting pitcher. I moved him down to the low 40s after Matt and I had a discussion the other days. I moved him back up to 35. I think the real upside for Chris Sale is 150 innings with a 3.5 ERA, 180 plus strikeouts with like a 110 whip, which is super feasible. He's going to win a lot of games in that Atlanta rotation, and I think he can talk to a guy like Charlie Morton and say, hey, how do you preserve your body? What are you doing? Because a guy like Charlie Morton still out there getting it done is amazing in itself. And a guy like Chris Sale's getting a little bit older, could talk to a guy like that, maybe figure things out, work with the Braves organization to figure out some way to get some longevity out of Chris Sale. But I don't want to beat a dead horse and talk about the same Chris Sale stats that I've talked about 100 times, but just in case anybody's new here, I know Chris Sale was banged up a lot last year, but after, I believe it was his fifth start, he was phenomenal last year, except for the injuries once again. Let's talk about Chris Sale's last 15 starts last year. He pitched 79 innings, 95 strikeouts, an under 1 whip, 3.16 ERA, batters hit 197 against Sale in his last 15 starts last year, a 3.41 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching. It's an ERA indicator. He just looked absolutely dominant. You got to love Chris Sale, man. When he's out there on the diamond, he's going to be great. It's just a matter of him being healthy. And I know it's tough to buy into him, but if I can get him, let's see where the ADP is. I don't want to just sort it by the last couple of days because that's not going to be a lot. We'll try and get an idea of where Sale might be going in general. Let's talk about time opening day comes if he's healthy and everything. But I kind of want to see where he was go. So 70th pitcher overall. Once again on NFBC, we can't sort by starting and relief pitcher. So I want to say maybe there's 20. So that's SP 50. I'll take him there. I'll take Chris Sale as my SP5. Might be a little bit tough as my SP4, even though I have him ranked as my 35th pitcher. Once again, rankings aren't necessarily, I will take them in this exact order. It's where I really think, I like them, where I think they might have a potential to end up by the end of the year. And I think Chris Sale can finish as a top 35 pitcher in, let's say like a higher end scenario. But I love what he brings to the table. And if he's coming into the year healthy on the Atlanta Braves, what's not to love? Let's talk about the other side of this trade, which I do think will have some fantasy relevant. Let's talk about Vaughn Grissom. I love Vaughn Grissom. Just really didn't get a fair shake in Atlanta. I know maybe some of it was his, lackluster defense. But if this kid just really would have got to stay out there on the field from opening day, just to rock out, I really think he would have been, pretty good. I know Orlando Arcia was very good for the Braves last year, but I think Vaughn Grissom could have been very, very similar type of player. A lot of batting average upside, not a lot of power, decent speed for Vaughn Grissom, has always been good in the minors. And I really think he's going to get to play a lot of second. I think it's pretty much been confirmed that Vaughn Grissom is going to be the second, unless something crazy happens, that Vaughn Grissom is going to be the opening day second baseman for a Boston Red Sox team that is decent. It looks like Roster Resources has him hitting 8th right now. I think a realistic Vaughn Grissom line, if he plays 150 games, is 75, 80 runs, 15 to 18 homers, 85 RBIs. You're talking about you can steal 20 bags, hit you 280, 290. I have him as my 20th second baseman coming into this year. I like the prospects of a Vaughn Grissom. Just let the young kid play. A kid who's 23 years old and has shown that he's capable of holding his own in the majors. In 2022, where he really broke out, 41 games for Vaughn Grissom, 141 at-bats, 24 runs, 6 doubles, 5 homers, 18 RBIs, 5 steals, had 11 walks and 34 strikeouts and hit 291. Even hit 280 last year in 23 games. Didn't really show any pop or any speed, but I think there was just so much, in Vaughn Grissom's head where, do I have the job? Or Orlando Arcia breathing down his neck. A lot on Vaughn Grissom's mind. But I really, really like the prospects of Vaughn Grissom this year playing every day for Boston. So I have Messi once again, my 20th second baseman coming into the season. But guys, that's all for me today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Please be sure, to look out for our next episode. We kind of been doing a bunch of different things, so far this off season. We're going to get into, positional rankings again sooner than later. Mock drafts up and coming soon. But guys, until next time, once again, not 100% sure what we're going to be doing next episode, but until then, guys, see ya.